Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
All right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up.
Dodge this.
Hello and welcome to the first ever The Holy Moment podcast. A podcast where three friends decided that they do not watch enough movies, even though they went to film school, so they said, hey, we can watch movies and then talk about it online. I am Nathaniel Lira, your host today. A dude that went to film school, he likes movies, he loves ramen, and he's really bad at ice skating. And today, I am joined with my two co-hosts, Jeffrey.
Howdy, I am Jeffrey Nichols, and I am an actor. I've acted in several university productions of various shows, and I've also acted in a number of short films that have been around to festivals in small
So
degrees.
professional.
And so I'll be approaching this from an acting standpoint, paying attention to the performances. That's what I'm most interested in when I'm watching a movie.
And then I have also my other co-host, Christopher.
Howdy, everyone. Crazy they call me Christopher. Not to dox myself, but he usually calls me Vega. I, like these two fools, went to film school, a cinema program at a Christian university. But I would more overcome from a perspective of, well, as having been on plenty of sets with these two guys, I would more overcome from a perspective caring about more of the camera work or the lighting or like that kind of very visual heavy language that is so tied to what cinema is.
Awesome. And I forgot to tell you what I am into. So I am a writer and director. So I care first and foremost most about the story. So while we are reviewing these movies, you can kind of expect that from us. Jeffrey will be taking more of an actor lens. Vega, who I will refer to as Vega and never Christopher again, first time in my life and last time, disgusting. A more visual side, and then me, more writing and directing. Obviously, we love all aspects of movies, so we'll probably touch upon all aspects at some point, but those are just the three lanes that we are currently pursuing and probably know the most knowledge about. So today, what we decided to cover was Godzilla Minus One. This came out in December 1 of 2023. The studio was... Okay, also I'm going to pause and say, this is a Japanese movie. None of us speak Japanese, so please forgive us for all these really bad pronunciations that are about to happen. The studio's Toho Studios. It was directed by Takashi Yamazaki. Some other movies that he directed, not produced, was Lupin the Third, The First, Stand By Me, Doraemon, The Eternal Zero, Always Sunset on 3rd Street, Parasite Part 1. Jeffrey, have you seen the anime Parasite?
I have not seen the anime Parasite, but I've heard great things about it.
Okay. Have you, Vega?
I have not.
Okay, all right. I just thought all three of us watch anime. I guess I probably watch the most, but he did the live action version of Parasite, not the animated. So I was just curious if you guys have seen the animated or the live action. This movie was shot on a budget of $15 million, and the box office was $115 million. So it did a really good job. The cast was Ryunosuke Kamaki, who is our lead, who played Kochi. Then that is Minami Hamabi. Oh, that was real bad. Oh, real bad pronunciation. And she played Noriko, the love interest. And then Hidetaku Yashika, who played Kenji or the Doctor. There are other kind of like leading roles, but I felt those three, in my personal opinion, kind of took the spotlight. So those are the three that I put in the cast. Well, first off, I'll just say in general, I really enjoyed this movie. Also, this was my second viewing. I watched it when it originally came out in December in theaters. It was awesome. I wanted to watch this in the black and white version, but it doesn't come till Netflix till August 1st. So I just rewatched the color, and it was a great experience the second time around. But yeah, Jeffrey, what was your just first off general opinion?
I really enjoyed it. Well, I've seen like the very first Godzilla movie, and maybe when I was a kid, I saw the one that came out in the early 2000s. So I'm not all that well versed in the world of Godzilla, but this movie blew me away with the visuals, with the acting, which is very interesting. Seeing Japanese acting because it's typically more expressive. That's just how their theater has been historically, and there's a lot of movement involved, and which might come as a surprise for a lot of people who think, oh, Japan, Stoicism, Zen, samurai, right? And so, a culture where oftentimes shows of emotion aren't as appreciated or wanted, their theater is very expressive.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting watching this, and this is a bigger topic I want to get to later in the episode. But as I mentioned, I watch a lot of anime, and something I really loved about this movie was it really felt like in some moments a live action anime with the over the top acting. But I think since it kind of had that through line, it wasn't like one moment they're really stoic and serious, and then all of a sudden they're over the top. I feel like it did have a certain over the top the whole time, which created this more cohesive atmosphere that I really enjoyed being an anime watcher. There were some really great scenes that were really funny and kind of a little cheesy and stupid, but were fun, and then some really like gut-wrenching scenes that the delivery and, like you said, the physical emotion of them like crying and like just flailing all over his little room crying was really funny to watch, but very sad at the same time. What about you, Vega? What was your just general takeaway?
I think general takeaway as far as the movie goes is that I'm not super, I guess, into the whole, like Godzilla, not super familiar with the franchise outside of like seeing it in pop culture and media and memes and stuff like that. But from what it looked like from seeing it from that perspective, kind of looked a little bit more, I hate to use, I guess, the terminology, but like maybe like Marvel-esque, to where it's like super big and not necessarily like really extremely grounded. But I really liked some of the way that they approached shooting a lot of like the movie and like the styles they chose and I guess the visual language they chose to tell the story with, because I think that helped kind of ground it to be more of a closer to like a typical drama versus this like almost like cartoonish movie, as I feels like, but I haven't watched most of them, like some of the other larger Godzilla type movies might be. I haven't watched any of them, so I don't, outside of this one. So,
well, here's what I'll say. Again, I don't know much about. I haven't seen every movie, but I do know that the first one was a metaphor for atomic devastation, and Godzilla was a very serious threat and figure in the story. And then as more movies were made, it became sillier and sillier, and now you have Godzilla is the good guy, and he's facing off against this giant moth creature. And now he has a baby, and it looks like a little anime lizard. And so, but this movie brings it back to... It felt to me that Godzilla had gravity, had like weight again, and was supposed to stand for something devastating. He's no longer an anti-hero, he's just a villain and an animalistic threat.
Important question going off of that. Jeffrey, if you had a baby and it looked like an animated lizard, would you love it?
If I had a baby and it looked like an animated lizard, I'd have serious questions about who my wife was fucking.
These are the real questions that we have to tackle on this podcast. Who's Jeffrey's wife is currently fucking? And if it is not Jeffrey, whom is it? We'll get to the bottom of this on the second episode of the Holy Moment podcast. But no, I definitely agree. And actually, there will be a trivia section later, and that has to do with one of the trivia questions, the history you just gave on the original Godzilla. So we'll get back to that. But like you two, I actually have almost no prior history to Godzilla. I like found out about it honestly like in the vaguest way, knew about it in high school, and it wasn't until I got to college. I watched so few movies before I went to film school, and it wasn't until I got to college and a lot of like my friends or just like co-film majors really were talking about it. So my history is actually this one was my first one ever, and I actually just accidentally stumbled upon it on some like Google, like my phone gives me like Google articles, and they're all like anime movie related because that's what my search history is. And so one day, I think maybe 5 or 6 months before this movie came out, I got like an article talking about how they're kind of hyping it up, and I read it. And sometimes in my mind, I just get like, this is what I want to see. And I do not care if it's good or bad. This is what I want. And just for 5 months, I was like, I want to see this movie. I do not care. I don't like monster movies very much. I don't care about Godzilla. I want to see this movie. And I watched it, and it was amazing. And I will say, again, I cannot speak about what like the 17 other movies that there are in the franchise. However, I did, after watching Godzilla Minus One, my girlfriend and her family are super into monster movies. And we went to go see, what was the newest one? Godzilla X Kong Empire or something like that? The American franchise version. And it was one of the worst movies I think I've ever seen. It was, and I only bring this up because I think we can really highlight story and what like Americans prioritize nowadays with film versus like maybe someone like the Japanese where the story is a lot closer to home for them. Just the Godzilla X Kong one was just abysmal. The plot was horrible. The CGI wasn't great, and it was all just goofy and stupid. And on that note, I would like to just kind of enter into the beginning of this film and what really hooked me and what I liked about it from like a narrative point. I thought, like within the first minute and a half, they tell us what the story is about, the core story, and it was so what a great idea. Sometimes in cinema you just have these like one sentence ideas, and it's like, what if there's a kamikaze pilot who is suffering from guilt of not killing himself? And that just blew me away. How they did it visually, Vega, I was going to ask you about it. Like the first 3 shots were all focused on that bomb, and we just got closer and closer and closer on that bomb until we're like on like a close-up of it as he was landing. And it really was to like show like there was a mission here, there's a bomb, this is what it's about, and he didn't carry it out. So from a story point, I mean, one of my big takeaways from this is they crushed visual storytelling. There were so many times they didn't say and they showed, and that really was an awesome moment for me. But what did you guys think of that opening scene on the island with all the mechanics?
I thought it was well done. I thought it told us a lot about our main character, that he is someone who wants to do right by people, but is quite frankly, he is afraid. He freezes up, and that keeps him from accomplishing what he sets out to accomplish, and that eats away at him.
Yeah, and that's what really drew me into it, is just like right off the bat, you get just such a guilt and shame. It's such a, man, it's a gut-wrenching emotion, and they really dug into like the shame and guilt of this character. Especially, it was so interesting, like, because usually with characters, the guilt and shame they feel is for not doing something they should. But weirdly enough, and I'll maybe dissect this more later, at the beginning of the film at least, he was feeling guilt and shame over something that we as an audience would say, hey, you shouldn't have to do that. You know, killing yourself for this war that obviously was a kind of a big statement of the movie that we don't believe in this. We don't stand behind this, especially in the latter days of the war. Was really well done. I don't know if this is really visual, but something that I really liked about that opening scene was, in my opinion, before watching Godzilla, and I still do to this day, I think Godzilla looks stupid. I don't think he looks scary. He looks like, like a big corn dog who can't move his arms. He's like a T-Rex, but even less intimidating because, you know, a T-Rex can't move his arms. That's the joke. But Godzilla doesn't look like he can move any appendages besides its feet. Like, he just looks really stiff, like a big dildo.
Here's what I'll say to that is, I agree with you that I think that the design isn't very intimidating. I think that they made it work in specific like shots, and I think he was the most intimidating to me when he was at his stiffest, right? And at his slowest, because it felt like he had weight and mass, right? You could really feel that this creature is massive, and it's almost unsettling how stiff it is as it moves, and how, I guess, single-minded or mindless.
It is horrifying to be presented with something that is so gargantuan that it doesn't even view you as a threat, but rather an ant, and you are not, you know, when it's a like in the movies with the dinosaur, it's like you versus the dinosaur, and the dinosaur attacks you. And this, it's like, you are just in Godzilla's way. He's not trying to kill you. You are just an afterthought. Your death is an afterthought of him walking, not him trying to kill you.
I think the parts that he was like crazy. Least scary to me was when he was swiping at buildings and throwing things, and his movements were very fluid and quick, because it took away from that sense of weight that he had. I think the idea is scarier of this giant lizard with feet as large as several semis put together, and it's just stomping on a forward like trajectory with no concern over what is under it.
I will say I personally found him one of two times. Probably the scariest, and it might just be visually, is when he's introduced on that island. Because again, I didn't really have any background to Godzilla, but I knew generally what he looked like. But when he was introduced on the island, he was more of a baby. He was more of a dinosaur. He was, like not much taller than like a building. And he was running around killing people and eating people. And that really threw me off. Because I've always been used to seeing Godzilla as a very tall, stiff figure. So when he showed up on that island really mobile and destroying everything and eating people, I thought he was probably the scariest for me in the entire movie, in that part. And that's probably, besides the story of the kamikaze storyline, that's probably what brought me in immediately, was the visuals of like, oh, holy crap, this thing is like a weird hybrid of a dinosaur and Godzilla, and he's moving really quick, and it was really devastating. Just how he was just munching. I really love that they would very often like show his feet. He's just tall, right? They're not doing like a really like low angle. They would just show a dude and then Godzilla's feet, and they'd be mid-sentence, and then his head would just come into frame and bite them, and then like throw them out of frame. I thought that was really fun.
I remember there was this one moment when one of the mechanics is running towards Koichi. He's like, "I've got you!"
Yeah. That was one of the scenes I was talking about. Yeah, just like, he's like, I'll lure him towards you, and then just eaten. I was like, you did lure him towards you. But yeah, I mean, that brings up a good point. So Koichi, this poor man, he's just traumatized, and then traumatized, and then traumatized, and then traumatized. So we open up the movie, boom, shame and guilt. My country told me to go kill myself in this war, and I didn't. And then within the, I looked at how long the movie was going. It was within the first 5 minutes, he was confronted again. The mechanic, who, forgive me, I don't remember his name, so I'm gonna call him the mechanic, told him to go, hey, fire the gun at Godzilla, get his attention so we can live. And he gets there, and he's too afraid, because Godzilla's like a whole 5 feet away from him. He's like, if I fire these guns, I'm gonna die. So once again, he is now traumatized again with the idea of, it was my fault that 10, 20 of these mechanics died because of me. So within the first 5 minutes, this dude has so much on his shoulders. He has the fact that he was supposed to die and then didn't, and the fact he was supposed to save these people's lives and then didn't, which I think is just great storytelling. Another thing that I really loved was, I forgot to mention, writer, director, also editor. So I was paying a lot of attention to the edit. I loved how snappy it was. They would just cut away to new scenes, and I will say, they sometimes gave us timestamps, like the year is 1956 or whatever. But more often than not, they would let us know how much time went on by visuals. And so very often they would end a scene. I mean, the classic term, what was it? End early, or get in late, get out early is like the term in film. So basically, you don't want to start a scene a little later into the scene, rather than showing Tim walks all the way up to Brian, then shakes his hand, then starts talking. Just have them start talking. And then the notion of get out of the scene early. Okay, well, they had their conversation. Now we don't have to watch Tim walk all the way away. They did a really good job, ironically, with getting out of scenes, but sometimes I felt like they entered scenes weirdly early. It's like, okay, you could have cut the 45 seconds you guys were standing there and then started walking. Not much was happening. But I thought, like, visually, they did a great job. Let's see, I wrote something down. It was, what was it? It was like with the little, I'm getting ahead of myself, but like with the woman, Noriko, and the daughter, when they were originally introduced in the film, our protagonist, Kyoichi, how did you pronounce his name, Jeffrey?
Koichi?
Koichi.
I believe so.
Koichi was like, yeah, that sounds correct. Koichi was basically like, hey, you can't stay with me. And then instead of her arguing or her begging or her continuing to follow behind him, they immediately cut to Koichi's house and them eating dinner. And it's just like a perfect way of like visually getting into the next scene and not, hanging out super late in the previous scene.
No, I think it's all done very well. And I think to the point of the shame and guilt that he bears, I think the movie does a great job of communicating to the viewers how shameful what he did is viewed by his society. I think when Tachibana, the mechanic, first implies that he abandoned his mission as a kamikaze pilot, you see it on the mechanics, like all of their faces, that there is judgment in it. Even as like Tachibana later comes up to him and says, hey, I don't blame you. We have to have more kamikaze pilots like you. To don't die for useless causes. Still, there's a ton of judgment all around. And then again, when Sumiko, who I guess is his aunt,
The lady that lives next door.
yeah, the lady that lives next
You
door,
think she's a relative? She could. I never picked up on that. I assumed she was just a neighbor, but she could be.
I think they might have had the same last name, or I might just be remembering incorrectly.
Oh,
Or family name, I should say.
correct.
But like, there's this joy initially at seeing him alive. It's like, hey, like, what's going on? I thought that you were a kamikaze pilot, and then it dawns on her, and then she's like, oh, you were a kamikaze pilot. What are you disgraceful person? You get out of my sight. And so, yeah, I mean, like, we would look at his situation and go, yeah, that was the right move. But we can understand why this weighs so heavily on him, because in this culture, that is viewed as just a supreme abandonment of duty.
Which is really interesting because I do not know a lot about history. I'm going to say that first and foremost. So I don't really know everything that was going on with Japan during World War II versus their politics now, yada yada. But what I will say is the movie is almost pushing propaganda ever so slightly with how much they are like, our government sucked during World War II. We did not want to do this. We were left alone as civilians. No one had our back, and we were pitted against each other. That was a very not subtle theme, which I'm not opposed to. It definitely, I think, helped out in the third act when instead of it, which I loved, because again, it's so different than kind of what the United States franchise is doing with Godzilla. And it's like, bring in the smartest scientists and bring in the military. It's like, hey, we're just a bunch of citizens that have military experience because we're forced to be in the military. And we're going to take it upon ourselves as civilians to defeat Godzilla. Which again was just highlighting the idea of kind of like, it was interesting. They didn't highlight we have a corrupt government. It was more like we just don't have a government that cares about us. And I didn't know if you guys had any thoughts on that kind of specific theme that was heavily implied throughout the whole film, or if you guys have any more knowledge to history or whatnot. Like does Japan currently not have very like high respects of like how the government handled World War II? Do you know?
Yeah, I think Japan during World War II was very imperialist. It was very much about conquering other lands and claiming it for the empire. Whereas now, the attitude of the Japanese people and the government historically, though I think there is some change coming, has been pacifist. Ever since the bombs dropped, things have never been the same. And I think they viewed war and violence in a very different light since then.
No, I mean, yeah, that very much makes sense. And I think they did another, something I picked up on in the movie that I liked is they did a really good job integrating the fear, the anxiety, and the destruction of Godzilla with the destruction of the war. I thought it was a good job of not being like, this is about Godzilla causing havoc, or hey, this is a statement about World War II. It was like Godzilla basically took on the personification of World War II, which, like you said, Jeff, at the beginning of the podcast, was kind of the original creation of Godzilla. But I thought they did a really good job in this movie. Like the end of the first scene where Koichi was on the island and then wakes up the next morning, sees all the dead mechanics, and then immediately cuts to him walking to his hometown destroyed. I feel like we see the destruction of Godzilla. It just claimed 20 lives of the mechanics, innocent people, and then boom, cut to his hometown being devastated, but by the war. I feel like it really melded the idea that Godzilla does represent this fear, this anxiety, and this destruction of the war. What was your favorite shot in the entire movie, Vega?
I think that's a tough one. I think they pulled off a lot of like nice and cool and like put into my reel kind of shots. I guess in no particular order. Like a few of them would be like, I think some of those initial shots of like that plane with like the bomb and like with some of the ocean and the island, and then that was, I think, a really strong thing to start off with. I like some of the more subtle things that are in like when they're in, I think, some of the houses somewhere like almost like midway through the movie. Like when they're, I think, cutting back between that and like some boat thing. But anyways, I think some of the internal house stuff was nice. I don't know. I don't know much about Godzilla's design in other movies outside of thinking that he might have looked a little bit more comical or exaggerated. I did like some of the shots with him in the island when he's smaller, but also when he's like causing a bit of havoc. If like in a if I was there in one of those cities, I would be really afraid if like I'm like well, you can't see this because it's an audio thing, but if I'm like very small compared to a incomprehensibly larger object blasting through somewhere in Japan. So I liked some of the larger than life kind of stuff that was done in the cities.
Yeah. Answer this question honestly, Vega. If you were running through Japan when Godzilla was there, would you poop in your pants?
Would I poop in my pants? Mm-hmm. I think I might just faint. I think I might just like IRL faint
into your poop
on the ground. Yeah, if I needed to go, no question about it, I would go. I like that. That's it. No brainer. Yeah. Oh, there was also like do you guys remember when they were like there was some people on a train, they're going, mm-hmm. and then like another train gets thrown on top of on the tracks. I think like that sequence was like pretty gorgeous.
What sold it to me was weirdly the this is gonna sound odd, but the geographical level of how it was like Godzilla in the city, and then he encroaches on this train that's near the water, and then she has to jump into the water. I just thought the writer did a really good job with using. I feel like he could have just put the girl in the city running like everyone else, but I feel like he took the time to add in, I don't want to say obstacles, but like geographical markers to expand the area, but also make it a little more interesting. Like, oh, Godzilla has to walk over this train. She has to jump into the water. It felt like a little more lived in city. So that was a really cool sequence. And I do think that was like one of the heavy marketable sequences in like the trailers and stuff. So I'm sure a lot of their budget like went into that like portion right there. A question for you, Vega, I had was something that I really liked about this movie. I mean, we should have covered it more at the beginning was, I think a lot of people, a lot of friends I talked to, a lot of people I saw online, something they took away was like, I was not expecting to be emotionally gut punched in a Godzilla movie. They were expecting to see people be eaten and maybe some funny things happen and maybe Godzilla, be thrown into space to be killed. But my goodness, they came with the story and they showed up with the emotions and it was awesome. So that being said, from a visual standpoint, I didn't think this the first time, or the second time, but I do remember thinking this the first time. The difference in the film, obviously there's cohesiveness to it, but how they shot like the scenes with just Koichi and Noriko at home versus how they shot now, hey, we're in a plane shooting Godzilla. While there was a cohesiveness to it, there was a very different approach. And do you have a preference in which one you enjoyed more?
I think well, visually speaking, I think I might prefer like the when they're at home kind of look to it.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that at least visually the film does really well is like, at least for me, like is using some of that visual language to don't know if Jeffrey used this word earlier. I might have used the same phrase, but like feels more grounded. I kind of like that, like if it's like the combination of like the more grounded like cinematography that you might find in like Pig or Punch Drunk Love or like I don't know, something which is just might be like an interesting weird premise but like is played for like the drama that like axes with like the like homey drama feel of like that kind of visual language comboed with I don't know the other stuff. I don't know. I liked it. I think it makes the larger than life stuff feel a little like more. I think it makes it work. I don't know if that's quite answering your question. But.
No, I can't. I think what you said at the very end, I couldn't agree with more. The fact that they took time narratively and visually to pull things way back. Like they could have still like when things were more chill and Godzilla wasn't attacking, they still could have done really crazy camera work and like really intricate stuff. But I think they really downplayed it in a good way. That like you said. When Godzilla attacked, it narratively punched way harder, and visually it just like carried Godzilla's weight a lot more because we weren't doing a bunch of visual things 24/7. And on that note, I think maybe my favorite part about this movie was, on a general level, I thought it balanced everything beautifully. Again, I don't watch a lot of like monster horror movies, but my girlfriend's biggest complaint is there wasn't enough monster and not enough people got eaten. And I think this movie balanced everything perfectly. It was like within the first 3 minutes we see Godzilla, and then I think they also don't tease us. They show Godzilla in his full form as like a baby. They show him eating people. They show him killing people. You get that immediate dopamine that you want out of a monster movie. And then we get like a really beautiful, sad story set up. And just as you're maybe being like, okay, this is a monster movie though, boom, Godzilla's back in that great scene in the water where he's chasing them after the boat. So all I'm saying is the structure of monster, down to earth story, monster, down to earth story, and how they interweaved it, I thought they nailed the timing and the editing of it perfectly. Jeffrey, what was your favorite performance in this entire movie?
I think that it was Koichi, simply because we saw him experience the depths of human sorrow. And yes, it was very over the top, but I think it was also believable too. It didn't feel like he was hamming it up. It felt like everything that was bubbling within him was being expressed, right? And so, no, I was really impressed by that and inspired, honestly. It made me kind of want to scream and wail and moan in my own house, just as practice.
I remember freshman year of college, my friend and I went to it was like 2 a.m., we went to an abandoned parking lot, and he just looked at me and was like, we should do a primal scream. And I was like, I don't know what that is. And he just started screaming in the parking lot, and then I started screaming with him. And I would like to say it was some dramatic, if it was a coming of age, it would have been a really big moment, and I would have cried in the rain and probably came out as like, gay or something if it was a movie. But in all actuality, I think we just pissed people off in the neighborhood, and then we went home. But that is just what you were that screaming at home reminded me of.
That reminds me of a moment that happened in college. It was finals time, and I was very stressed, and I needed to vent. I needed to get it out somehow. And so I went into the sound booth in the communications building. It's soundproofed. And I just screamed as loud as I could. And it was so cathartic. It felt so good. And I was about to scream again, but then I realized right next door there's a big window because there are mics that connect the sound booth and the room next to it where you edit audio. And there was some guy who was working on advanced sound editing, and he was putting audio to a quiet place, just replacing the audio. And he's just working in silence, and all of a sudden he hears this scream coming next to him. And I don't know, I went over, I apologized. It was all really funny, but...
So it was not a very soundproof sound room.
No, I guess not.
I also heard that story, Jeffrey, but I heard you were not just screaming, but screaming racial slurs. So I don't know if you want to deny that, but that is what I heard.
I've got a lot of enemies. They'll say a lot of things about me. All I'll say is I've been told that I don't have to speak or say anything if I don't want to. I don't have to say anything that'll incriminate me. So I plead the fifth.
Plead the fifth, right? Yeah, he's already such a famous actor. People are trying to blacklist him, starting those rumors about him. No, what scene? What specific performance? And when I say performance, not overall performance throughout like one character's performance throughout the whole movie or actor, but what specific scene or moment performance do you think would be the hardest for you to have pulled off?
All right, I would say either the moment that Noriko is blown away.
You can't play a woman being blown away in wind very easily?
More like, Koichi's reaction in the immediate aftermath. Yeah. But that was pretty dramatic, pretty well done. And I skimmed your notes, and I agree with you 100% that when the mud or that black liquid just falls on his face as he's screaming. That's an amazing visual.
Highlight of the movie. It was the best. I guess I'll ask to wrap us up with like what your favorite scene is, but spoilers, that was my favorite scene. It was awesome and the closest to like anime live action I've ever seen in a non-anime adaptation. It was so
No,
good.
it's all good. I won't ever forget that shot. I think that'll be the shot that I remember.
Oh yeah.
But I also really liked when the citizens were prepping to put their plan into action around the dock, and they're sitting in the water, and all of a sudden, before we even see Godzilla, we see the decoy ship fly through the air. It was great at creating suspense.
Yeah, what a we're screwed moment to see just how easily that one ship was thrown, and then there's still like time to get in the boat. I guess that was crazy. I love this. I think the reason I love that dramatic scene where Koichi was screaming for his who he thought was dead, I guess girlfriend / live-in wife, was the mud, because I think it was like a crane shot up high pushing in on his face as he went on his knees and screamed. It's great. I think we've seen it before, but I think the fact that like if this was an anime, what would have happened, or if this was a Tarantino film, what would have happened was blood would have rained down on his face. But that wouldn't make any sense at this moment. So I just wasn't expecting anything. And then when mud started raining down, I was just shook. I was like, that is so devastating. The fact that it took like a whole minute, that Godzilla's like laser beam heat breath was so devastating and so powerful that it took a minute for the mud to fly up and then start falling down, just created such a depth of like, oh, the devastation that just happened emotionally for him, but also physically for for Japan. It was crazy. It hit so hard. It was awesome. I like the laser cannon. I think that was probably my second favorite part of the movie, which was the same scene. But when Godzilla was charging up his laser cannon, I think laser cannons are so known for anime, but when they're done in like live action, they kind of look stupid. But the build up and every single directorial decision of, we need to wait this long, he needs to suck in, and then there needs to be that second of just like silence, and then he unleashes, and when he unleashes, it's perfectly quiet, and then the explosion goes off. It was, in fact, a badass heat laser, which I think is very hard to pull off in live action. I think it often comes
And
across
the thing
cheap.
too about those laser cannons is, I feel like oftentimes in media they're used left and right, such that they might be badass on their own, but we're seeing it so often that it loses its weight. But here, it takes time for it to charge up, right? He's not using that as his go-to attack. Plus, the devastation that it causes is very real and focused on. It's a nuclear blast.
Yeah, and another thing I really liked about this movie was, and again, maybe I'm talking out my ass because I haven't seen the other movies, but I feel like the other movies, like Jeffrey said, progressively got more cheesy, and maybe I just was expecting them to kill Godzilla in a really boring way. Was all I was thinking. Or a really boring way, or a really, really, really cheesy way. Because again, that's all I knew kind of about the franchise. So I thought either it was going to be like, oh, we secretly have hidden away that we never used in World War II a giant F-off laser cannon. Or, Godzilla is allergic to cheese. But they didn't do either. So I thought the way they killed him was actually really creative. And ultimately, I do know what killed him is the bomb, which is kind of stereotypical. But how they got him really weak with the decompression and recompression of the ocean, I thought was really cool. Vega and Jeffrey, if you guys were tasked by yourself to kill Godzilla, how would you go about it?
By myself, or am I like, do I have a team of people?
By yourself. Your team of people is you in a room alone.
Ooh. Well, I guess I'd ask if anyone has any spare nukes I could borrow. I don't think that would get me anywhere. And plan B is to pray.
Just to go out. Just to get on your hands and knees in front of Godzilla. Maybe if you just start worshiping him. Don't pray to God. Pray to Godzilla that he might spare you.
Do I have the resources that I have, like, IRL, like, right now, to do, like, to kind of play this one out?
You have the resources as if you were naked in Antarctica.
Also, like, nothing.
No, you have the resources.
Like, not other people, but just, like, access to, like, a car,
Oh,
actual
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like what you have in your normal life, we'll say.
Okay.
Plus $1.
Plus $1.
Yeah, doubled your bank account.
Yeah. Are we talking like baby size Godzilla from the beginning of the movie, or are we talking about like, dang, I should have killed him, now he's huge Godzilla?
You know what? Since you're asking these good questions, unlike Jeffrey, who just went in, I will give you the benefit of the doubt, and it is pre-puberty Godzilla.
Okay. If it's that one, and if it's appearing like in my neck of the woods in the middle of nowhere, South Georgia, I might. What would I do? How big do you think that thing was? Like taller than a 2-story building, 3-story building?
Well, I don't really know heights. I would say he was no taller than 3 of me sitting on my shoulders. I am 6'1".
Okay, then I think what I would do is like,
That's just so incorrect. He's so much taller than that.
if he's like not tall, like if he's not, I'm just.
Let's say
betting-
he's the size of the con building, which I know for our audience means nothing. Just
okay,
imagine a
so
building.
like a little bit over 2 stories.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would bring him to. I would like. So I would. Okay, so the corn, and I currently drive like a pickup. So I would get the horn, which is like really annoying, and it's like it feels like a train horn. It's like that wasn't a good reflection of it, but it's really loud, really annoying. And at one time I've heard it from like the outside because I had the door open and I was trying to grab something from the board, and it scared the living daylights out of me. So I would lure Godzilla in as best as I could, like from a few streets away, using the horn. And then if I could make it on however much gas I had, I'd book it to, there's a family friend I have in a nearby city, and they have like a giant plantation and a farm, and they have a giant hole where they just kind of throw stuff.
Oh.
I would try to lure him as best as I could somewhere near that hole, or like even if it means like I'm driving into that hole and he follows me in, that's okay with me. Because that would be kind of crazy to see the kind of havoc that even that size of a monster could do to South Georgia. But also, I think there's enough like military things around here that they probably would do something about it.
After he's stuck in the
soon.
hole.
Yeah, after he's stuck in a hole.
That would go hard on your tombstone. Here lies Vega, a beloved friend, killed Godzilla.
Okay, I'm thinking Oda Island, Godzilla. If I could rope a few hunters into helping me, maybe like the owner of an armory, like a gun store. If we could like kill a grizzly, right? Nice meaty animal,
Okay.
and then stuff its insides with explosives, and then try to, I don't know, get him to eat the grizzly bear. Because explosives
Okay.
in the mouth are what killed him, or at least
This is true.
decapacitated him. Because at the end, it's implied up he's going to regenerate, but still, it's like our best chance.
I figured out what I'd do because I think in this movie they kind of specified it, and in other movies, like at least in Godzilla X Kong they specify it. And I think it is just like a thing about Godzilla. Maybe not in every rendition, but at least the ones I've seen, which is 2. He is a territorial being, so his whole thing, because like they said, like, oh, we'll use his roar to get him to like come to lead him to the water where they need him to be, because if he hears like a bigger animal, he wants to take it out because he is in charge. So my plan is to piss on all of the buildings in the world, and then when he smells it, he'll be like, ah, bro, someone else already claimed this land. I'm gonna piss on everything besides a volcano. And then he's going to have to get in the volcano and die.
The issue with that is he's territorial. He's also competitive, right? If he smells your piss on those buildings,
Bro,
he's
you
going to
haven't smelled
piss on
my
those
piss.
buildings too, and he's going to flood the city.
No. My piss is so strong. It's stronger than his. The smell it creates.
Imagine a golden
Like,
Niagara Falls, Nathaniel.
Oh, no. Oh, we got to end the episode. I don't want to imagine that. Welcome to this Jeffrey's Kink podcast. But in all seriousness, to end us out, what was your guys' single favorite moment of the movie?
I would say 2 scenes in conjunction that sort of like one sets up the other. But the first one where they're talking to Koichi about Noriko, and they're like, "Don't you do anything crazy? Don't you go kamikaze on us? Like, what are you trying to prove? You can't bring Noriko back. Why didn't you marry her when you had the chance?" And he says, "Because my war is not over yet. I could never marry her because my war is not over yet." The implication being, like, once I can conquer myself, these demons, once I win that war, which I'm not even sure if there's an end in sight, then I will be ready to move on. And then at the end, when Noriko is found alive, and he's crying, and Akiko is in his arms, and she asks him, "Is your war over yet?"
It would have been a shame to review this movie on a podcast and not bring up that main crux of a storyline. Because like I said, we're all going to Godzilla to see him eat people. But at the end of the day, we love this movie because of the storyline of this man that by society was told to have died, to have the guilt of letting innocent people die, and time again letting people down. And like the scene, the girlfriend Nochiko is the one that has to push him into the alleyway. She saved him again and again. Just his "my war isn't over yet," but was even more the idea of you have to choose to live. It's your choice to pull that lever. You can go kamikaze and kill yourself, become the hero, or honestly not become the hero, but run from your demons, as more would be happening. But the idea of, it doesn't matter what society says. It doesn't matter what other people say. You have to choose that your life is worth living. And if you can't choose that, life is going to be hell for you. So I thought, what a beautiful message of, hey, my life is worth living. I have a woman I love. I have a daughter. But more than any of that, like like he had a line where it was like halfway through the movie, he was like, I would just want to start living again. I want to start dreaming again. I appreciate that it wasn't like, well, I have a woman I love. I have a daughter. I have responsibility. It was like, no, I myself as a human being intrinsically have worth, and therefore I have worth living. So him getting over that trauma and that guilt, I thought was really beautiful. But yeah, what about you, Vega? What's your favorite just like scene, moment, pixel?
Man, that's a hard thing to come after.
Yeah.
If neither of the things that you guys have outlined, I personally did like the last sequence of him ramming into Godzilla's mouth, and then the sort of the Dark Knight Rises-esque thing of like, oh, did he die? Did he just die? And then the reveal that he didn't, and then the subsequent view sequence after that. Just, it worked for me. It was the tension building up, the payoff of him not dying, payoff of the bomb going off, payoff of all of it. Just tied everything together in a nice little bow from where he didn't do certain things, and he lived with that kind of guilt in the beginning, and then he was able to crash it into Godzilla's mouth, but also not die.
Yeah. Something that I completely thought was going to happen, and then my girlfriend pointed out that narratively it wouldn't work as well, but I 1,000% thought when the mechanic guy, like right before the big final battle happened, and the mechanic guy brought him in and told him all about the how to fly the ship or the plane, and was like, hey, this lever right here, this red one, you have to pull it to arm the weapons. I was convinced that the mechanic had installed a ejector seat but didn't tell him, and so it was going to be like a surprise. Like, I thought like it wasn't actually arming the bombs, it was in fact just ejecting him, but he didn't know that. So I thought for sure it was going to be a surprise and he got to live. But my girlfriend pointed out, and it makes sense narratively, if at the end of the movie he didn't decide to live, it kind of would have undermined the whole guilt and shame and I need to die, I need to go sacrifice, I need to go sacrifice myself. And then once again, he was going to sacrifice, he was going to make his daughter, quote unquote daughter, an orphan. But then it was just saved by another man. It would have kind of undercut the story. So, but just watching it, I was like, oh, it's going to be so cool when he thinks he's dying, but then pulls the lever. But ultimately, I think it was better that he knew there was an ejector seat and he chose to inject himself.
Yeah, I think that's like really why the payoff of the end
works
in conjunction with the
100%. Well, awesome.
Good
well, hey,
bookends.
Yes, for sure. They go They meet together like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich bread. Well, hey, before we leave you guys, I have two things. Number one, it is our first inaugural episode, and for that is our first inaugural section of trivia. So, Godzilla Minus One trivia. I have 5 questions. Vega and Jeffrey didn't really know I was doing this, so they're going to be very blindsided. My contestants consist of Vega, who watched this movie on 3 times speed, and Jeffrey, who has ADHD. So we will see who is triumphant. So, question number 1. This is exciting, guys. This is the first trivia we ever done, so whoever wins this will have bragging rights for all of time, saying, I won. So, Jeffrey, this question actually has a bit to do with what you were saying at the very beginning of the movie, the origins of Godzilla and what it meant. So there's a hint in itself. I guess maybe I'll give it to whoever's most technically correct, but we'll see. There is no buzzing, so I'm going to ask the question and just say an answer. So, question number 1 is, what is the meaning of the title Godzilla Minus One?
Wait, I didn't hear any of the rules. Can I just go first? Can I buzz
Yes,
in?
Vega.
Okay. Godzilla Minus One. I think it kind of, I could, piggybacking off something Jeffrey said much earlier in the thing, I'm like 90-something% sure the title is like where the aftermath of like World War II and the bombs and all of that left like Japan. They were like, Japan was at 0, like, and then -1 taking it like Godzilla has, we are like in the absolute shamble, we are in the trenches kind of thing. At least I feel like I read something or like saw like a TikTok or something like that. Kind
Ding,
of
ding, ding. TikTok pays off because that is correct. Yes, it is the idea that after World War II, Japan as a nation was brought back to level 0, socially, economically, just like brought down to their knees. And then Godzilla just roars up from the ocean and kicks the living shit out of them while they're already down and brings them to -1. All right, Vega has taken the lead. Jeffrey, do you feel ashamed?
I do. I feel completely...
Good.
I need to go kamikaze to restore my honor.
That's crazy.
The movie taught you the opposite, Jeffrey. Do you learn nothing? This is why you're losing in trivia. You don't learn. Okay, question number 2. What category did Godzilla Minus One win at the
Visual
2024 Oscars? All right, Jeffrey has tied it up. 1-1. It was funny. When I was doing this, I originally was going to do 6 questions and then realized that's not an odd number, so we could have a tie. So I did 5. Okay, this is where I did those 2 as like general knowledge of the movie itself, and then these 3 are like, were you paying attention to the movie? I don't know if they progressively get harder, but these are the 3 that I just thought of. Okay, question number 3. How many bombs were in the plane used to kill Godzilla?
4 types? 4 types of bombs?
4 types or 4 bombs?
I'm going to say 4 types.
Well, okay, but the question is how many bombs? You could have 6 bombs, but only 4 different types. So how many bombs?
All
are
right,
in
7.
it,
7.
if that makes sense. Okay, and Vega, I will give you whoever's closest for these ones. You don't have to be spot on. Not to say maybe Jeffrey's was spot on. What's your guess, Vega?
5.
All right, the answer is 2, so Vega wins. It was, I had to go back and rewatch the scene, and I understood it correctly. They basically were like, here's a bomb in the front, we installed 2 guns, and then they go again to say the bomb in the front, and then we replace the fuel tank with another bomb. So there's a world in which there's 3, and I just misunderstood, but I'm pretty sure they referenced 1 bomb twice, so I think there's only 2 bombs. I think there's the bomb in the front that we see, and then they say, hey, we took out the fuel tank and replaced it with another bomb. So 2. All right, Vega takes the lead. If you get this next one, Vega, you win. All right. What city was Godzilla heading towards before he was killed?
First one he attacked was Ginza.
That is correct,
And
but that is
then-
not the question.
Yeah, the city he was heading towards.
To give hints and context, it was the scene where the scientist... Oh, man, we didn't talk at all about the scientist. He was awesome. I loved him. He seemed very anime-like. Great actor. Anyways, it was the scene where he, like, burst into the meeting room and laid the map down and used the protractors to, like, draw a straight line from the ocean to the city. And it's like, boom, Godzilla's destination. What city was that?
What if I'm just like tremendously wrong and say something like really offensive?
Offense? As in, like, you don't say a city in Japan. Vega, you're half Japanese. How do you... okay, Jeffrey, what's your guess? You have a guess.
Okay. Very broad, because I think that perhaps a lot of these locations mentioned in the movie are just parts of Tokyo, which is a very large city. I'm just going to say Tokyo.
That is correct. He was in fact heading towards Tokyo, which I think they use that as kind of like the biggest weight. You know, he's heading towards the biggest city. So hey, you guys are tied. This is exciting. All right, the last question. Whoever gets it, I will love. The other person, I'm gonna unfollow on Facebook. So get prepared. The last question of trivia of Godzilla Minus One, the first episode of the Holy Moment podcast, is: how much was Koichi's signing on bonus for taking the mine dismembering job?
Okay, 3,000 yen.
Oh, that's correct.
Yeah.
I thought surely they're gonna be like, we don't know, and throw out numbers, and I was gonna have to just like round it. How you just like remembered that fact?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was nice knowing anything.
I will. Yeah. Bye, Jeffrey. I will Venmo you $5 if you can tell me. And there's a very specific reason I actually know this answer. Can you, without googling, can you tell me how much in US dollars 3,000 yen in today's currency is worth? And I'm gonna Google it because I'm 90% sure, but just to make sure. But yeah, tell me.
All right, man. Okay, I think that is.
What if I got it right?
Nothing.
Okay. I think.
Wait,
that
can I sit in the chat?
Well,
I think-
well, Jeffrey can't look.
I think like 500 yen is.
Oh wait.
Don't look in the
Don't
chat.
look.
Okay,
Don't
I
look
think
at the chat.
500 yen is about
It's popping up on the
$5.
chat.
And so.
Okay. Keep in folks' mind, this is a actor and theater major, not a math major.
Okay. Because I might be wrong. Okay, I'm gonna say this feels small.
Jeffrey's penis?
I would be tempted to say like 300, but if I'm correct in saying that 500 yen is about $5, then I think $30, which may have meant more to them back then than it does now. So I'm going to say $30.
You are pretty close. So the 100% correct answer... Also, I don't owe you $5. I should have said you owed me $5. Anyways, the correct answer is $19.06. I would have said $20. The reason I knew this, and the reason I was so excited to put this random trivia question in here, was I am trying to plan a very tentative trip with my girlfriend to Japan one day. I want to eat food. I want to not spend a lot of money. So I was just looking some stuff up. And I Googled what the average price of a meal in Japan was. And they said between 1,500 yen and 3,000 yen. And then I had to Google what is 3,000 yen worth. And it was like $20. And I was like, okay, that's not horrible. But also the yen is like at an all-time low right now.
Yep.
So it's super low. So I guess like you have to take in fact for inflation. So let's say it's more like $30, and $30 back then, I don't know, is probably worth a lot more. And the fact that they're living in like a junk heap, I'm sure even $30 is a big deal. But anyways, congratulations, Jeffrey. You win the very first ever The Holy Moment Podcast trivia segment of our podcast. You get nothing besides my love.
Aww.
You have my love. The last thing we're going to talk about today is ranking this movie, because you can't have a podcast talking about movies and not, rank something. We need to know everything needs to have intrinsic value. We gotta rank everything. So in the future, we will have a much better ranking system. But for right now, we're just going to give it 1 through 10. 10 being the best, 1 being the worst. I guess I'll just start. I'm going to give this the sad thing is, I think if I had reviewed this right after the first viewing in theaters, I would have given it an 8 and 8.5. I don't know if it's unfair. I watched it on my my screen at home, and I was tired. But I just think a lot of the punches emotionally and visually were lessened on a second watch. Again, still amazing, but they just didn't have that same effect. Where some movies I can watch 10 times and it punches me every single time. So for that reason, I'm going to give it a 7.5. What about you, Vega? What are you giving this guy?
Well, what I might say might differ from what I put on Letterboxd. And probably might honestly even change on the normal watch when I don't watch it, like 3,000 speed kind of deal. But are we going the out of 10 metric? Is that what
Yeah, for now.
Okay.
That will be revised in future episodes, but for now, it's just out of 10.
I like 7.75, solid 8 with a heart.
Okay.
with a
With a
little heart by it.
With a nice heart, a little higher than me. In a very short, give a very short reason why.
Even with as much as I might have said about like how what they've done with like the cinematography and like some of the style choices and like all that kind of stuff, help ground it. Watching it in such a fast speed maybe ungrounded it a little bit. Like seeing the like a giant monster like go really fast.
What a good noise.
Might have taken a little bit of stuff away from me, but I'm not really entirely sure what I'm assuming I'll settle like at an 8 or 8.5 after I watch it in normal speed. But because some of it was just like even with the grounding that the film was able to accomplish, it still was really exaggerated because I was playing it in a fast forward setting.
Yeah, especially like we said at the beginning of the podcast, with Japanese acting sometimes being over the top, I can imagine watching that at 2 or 3 times speed being a bit alarming. So the fact that it earned that high, even on that speed, is pretty impressive. All right, Jeffrey, 1 out of 10.
I'm going to give it an 8. Solid 8.
Oh, so I'm the lowest, which is interesting because I do think if you guys were also sick at rewatching it, it might be lower. And if it was my first rewatch, it would be higher. That's just interesting to know. But continue.
I just thought the story was emotionally resonant, and so are the performances. I like the characters, and that's big because, as I understand it from hearing other people talk about the Godzilla movies, in recent years, the human characters and the human plots have existed solely to bring Godzilla onto screen. And so their stories haven't been afforded as much attention and weren't very interesting, right? For a lot of these movies, people would go into theaters and go, okay, I don't want to hear these people talk anymore. I want to see Godzilla tear down some buildings. But in this movie, the human characters are the heart of the film. And that makes it so much more effective than those other films.
I couldn't agree more. I think for me, it is just a perfectly well-balanced film. And I really love what you said. It isn't humans running around being a reason to bring on Godzilla. It is their story in the environment that Godzilla is wreaking havoc. It is not, one can't exist without the other in this story. Godzilla very much represents their inner turmoil, and without him, there wouldn't be a story. But it also isn't like, well, because the characters are sad now, Godzilla is here. They're kind of one and the same, which was really cool. Something that my girlfriend and I have been joking about since Maverick came out, last summer? Maybe 2 summers ago? We watched Top Gun Maverick and really enjoyed it. But we kept watching it, we kept discussing it, and we're like, why do we enjoy this so much? And we came to the sad conclusion that yes, is Top Gun Maverick really good in a lot of ways? 100%. But Top Gun Maverick doesn't blow me out of the water in any areas. Maybe besides like cinematography. Like that, I mean, like what they did with the planes and everything was amazing and groundbreaking. But besides that, what Top Gun Maverick did, and this is how it relates to Godzilla Minus One, is they just did every category well. And it's just like nowadays with movies, you get a movie that maybe does one category well, maybe 2, and sometimes none. And it just feels like they're skimping out on the story, they're skimping out on the visuals, they're skimping out on the acting, they're skimping out on something so something else can pay off, and it just doesn't work. So I think Godzilla Minus One for me really falls in that Maverick world where it is not the best movie that I've ever seen, but by goodness does it do every single aspect of its movie to excellence, and that puts it really high for me. And the last thing I want to say on this podcast is in the future, we'll have a different system for picking what movie we're going to watch next week. We do not have that system perfectly outlined, so we'll probably implement it maybe next week. But for right now, without any heads up, Vega, what movie do you want to watch for next episode? And it can't be all of season 3 of The Bear.
It can't.
No,
That is
I will watch that, I promise. Has to be a movie. Maybe one day we'll do a TV show.
Does it have to be in... Would you guys prefer English? No English? What's your thoughts on that? Any preferences?
In general, I absolutely love foreign films, but maybe just because we did just do a foreign film, maybe preferably English this time. But
you don't want to
I
double
said
dip?
any movie.
You don't want to double dip? Okay, like my vote would be Nobody Knows I'm Here.
You've told me about that.
I don't think I've ever heard of
It's
that
on...
movie. So.
Have you guys ever watched Lost?
Oh, like the TV show?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, do you remember the sort of
Oh, it's the actor from Lost.
Yeah, it's one of the actors from Lost. It's not the main guy. It's
a
one of the main
musical.
cast. It's Jorge Garcia.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. Sweet. I haven't heard of this at all.
Yeah,
Have you
it's
seen
good.
it?
It should still be. I think it's still on Netflix. It is
Okay,
It's in Spanish. It came out, I think, in 2020. It worked really well for me visually,
Cool.
and being just like a kind of like, oh, like it was just like some film that me and my mom watched, and was surprisingly really, really good.
Sweet. Yeah, I'm down. Well, awesome. Well, guys, thanks so much for joining us today at the Holy Moment Podcast. Tune in next week. I'd love to say a date, but we don't have that figured out yet. But once we do, we'll let you know next podcast. But next time, we'll be watching Nobody Knows I'm Here, which you guys can watch probably on Netflix or some other streaming platform. Join us next week, and we'll get all the juicy details if it was a good, mediocre, bad movie, or if we even talk about the movie, or just Jeffrey's hair, which looks very nice. But yeah, thanks guys for joining us for this first episode. Hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week, and have a good one. Bye-bye.